Lauren Bobert's insane outburst during the State of the Union address this week has really kind of overshadowed the entire message that Biden had during the State of the Union, because this is what people are focusing on. And to be honest, maybe that's not a bad thing for the Democratic Party. Of course, Biden laid out some decent plans. He laid out some not so good plans, in my opinion. Didn't exactly explain really how he would make any of it happen. So maybe, again, the best thing is for people to be focusing on the insanity that came from Lauren Bobert and, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene. But there's a couple folks in the U.S. House of Representatives who wish that the world would focus on other things. And that happens to be the rest of the delegation in the U.S. House of Representatives from the state of Colorado. Both Republican and Democratic lawmakers serving in the House of Representatives from the state of Colorado have spoken out this past week about Boebert's behavior during that State of the Union, with one going as far as to compare her, saying that her actions were like a Carnival Sideshow. So let me read for a moment some of the responses, again, from Democrats and Republicans, calling out Lauren Bobert for embarrassing their state of Colorado. Whether you agree or disagree with Joe Biden and his State of the Union address, Lauren Bobert's actions were embarrassing to all of us who call Colorado home. That's actually from State Senator Don Coram. Her juvenile behavior and antics for attention are better served in a junior high school or a sideshow at a carnival. Her lack of respect for the people she represents and the institutions she serves is obvious. Now, there's a couple more. This is from Ed Perlmutter, a Democrat, 7th District, Colorado. Congresswoman Boebert's outburst was uncalled for and would have been inappropriate at any time during such an event, but certainly as President Biden was talking as a parent about the loss of a child and how our country can better help veterans. And of course, let's not forget that Boebert, after her outburst, later in the week voted against the very thing Biden was proposing there. You know, the cancer screening and benefits and medical benefits for the burn pit victims. She voted against that. She voted against U.S. veterans getting better health care to help detect, prevent, and treat cancer. Another one here. Ken Buck, who, by the way, is a Republican. I'm a firm believer in decorum, and I believe that we have seen a lack of it as our politics have become increasingly toxic during recent years. The State of the Union is not a time for theater, as Speaker Nancy Pelosi treated it by ripping up President Trump's speech while directly behind him for the cameras. Congress is not a focus group, as both parties have acted while booing and chanting during presidential addresses for years now. It is also not a time for heckling, as Lauren unfortunately did last night. All right, so that was a little more mild, right? Not exactly as hard-hitting as calling her a junior high carnival barker, but still said, okay, yeah, it was bad what she did, but hey, remember the bad thing Pelosi did? It's both sides. It's really not. It's really not. Let's stop with the both sidesism on this crap. President Biden was talking about his deceased son. Lauren Bobert decided to heckle him at that moment. No excuse for that. But in terms of politics has gotten this way in recent years that Ken Buck said, he's not wrong. I'll give him that about that part. He's not wrong. But I gotta tell you, it's not the Democrats that are really responsible for that. It's your party. And this all started, of course, with people like Donald Trump. You know, this is one thing you can blame on Donald Trump. Now, I've spoken repeatedly in the past. Decorum has never actually existed, right? The caning of Charles Sumner is the one I always bring up. Dude almost got beat to death on the Senate floor, okay? So things have always been a little testy in Congress here in the United States. But they took a turn for the worse when Donald Trump came along. Decorum didn't exist at all at that point. The personal insults, the attacks, the name calling, the juvenile behavior, Trump brought that in there with him. And then all his little acolytes started popping up and doing the same thing. Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Bobert, Madison Cawthorn, Louis Gohmert. All these people, they have taken it down to a new low. And what Boebert and Green did during that State of the Union address this week took that to an even lower low. They're not even at the bottom of the barrel anymore. They're underneath the barrel by like several feet of dirt. That's how low these Republicans have taken it. And honestly, going back to that first comment, a junior high, type or a sideshow at a carnival, that's almost insulting to carnival workers and junior high schoolers. I think Lauren Bobert's comments were even worse than that. She showed a complete lack of maturity, a complete lack of respect for a grieving parent, and then, of course, did the worst part of all and voted against cancer treatments for U.S. veterans. That's about as low as you can get as a human being. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel. We also encourage you to like, comment, and share, but again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.